Hello, magic makers, and welcome back to the Metaphysical Apothecary. We are your hosts, Shannon and Megan.
Hi, everyone.
Also known as the Scorpio Sisters, here to explore the mysterious, the magical, and the arcane.
So, a lot of people, when they start walking down a magical path, discover at least one animal with whom they identify or that guides them. This is another area where it can be very important and very rewarding to discover what those animal guides are trying to tell you through the associations that you place with them. So, for instance, for me, bear is very important to me. She's been with me since I was in college at the very least, but I think she was probably there well before that. And I have always associated bears with water. They are traditionally associated with earth for obvious reasons, but I put bear in my water quadrant on what I call my spirit compass because they love to swim in bodies of water, including the ocean. They stand in waterfalls and they catch fish and salmon. They'll even play soccer in the water. If there's a salmon that has expired in the water and it's at the bottom of the stream, they'll get in there and use their feet to kick it up to the surface and grab it. They'll dive down. They hunt and eat a lot of different kinds of sea creatures like clams. And they also are associated with healing for me. Bears are very good at seeking out healing substances like honey and berries. For me, they are just these wise, water-bound creatures, and that's what they mean to me.
For me, bear is very important as well. Bear actually sits on my directional wheel. Bear is the guardian of my west. And I go west to introspect. I go west to find quiet and to be. And bear to me is very powerful, very present, but not as vocal as other animals. They roar, they grunt. You probably don't want to be around them when they do either. But I've had several run-ins with bears at a safe distance. Where they just give you a look and they're communicating so much with you. And it's this quiet communication because they know themselves. And so they can communicate without ever having to do anything more unless they're enraged or frustrated. A roaring bear is not something you want to be anywhere near.
No.
And because she is so prevalent with that form of communication, she actually also sits as a guardian to my throat chakra. And Megan has known me for very many years, obviously. For me, verbal communication is not my first format of communication. It's not the instinctive, okay, well, I'll just say this and be able to communicate this with a human being. I communicate very much with my body language, with what I'm wearing, with emotional energy that I'm putting off, and with my art. I communicate a great deal with other modalities that are quote unquote silent or quiet. And most of the time, the people who know me don't even hesitate to understand what I'm saying without me ever having to speak a word. And it's only when I'm with others that I actually have to start grunting in some kind of frustrating way because they're not understanding what I'm saying the first time around. And so she sits there and helps me to balance that chakra and to be able to express and communicate myself in the most holistic way for me.
Right. And they convey so much in a look too. I walk with bear in wisdom and to gain calm, to gain serenity, to understand that healing is a natural process of life. We have to heal from all kinds of things throughout our life. It's a never-ending journey. But my encounter with bear occurred when I was 14 to 16, somewhere in there. I was still in high school in rural Pennsylvania. I was walking in our local park and I saw come up out of a creek bed what I thought at a distance was a very strange looking, very fluffy dog. Upon getting a little bit closer to it, I realized that it was a black bear that was about half grown. Lucky for me, black bears are relatively timid. We locked eyes and both of us mutually decided that this was not a good place to be with each other and walked away from each other.
One of my bear stories didn't actually happen to me, but it's indicative of what bear is to me. So we used to have a vacation place in Pennsylvania, and one of our neighbors had a very rundown lot. He and his wife worked making it a beautiful, well-tended, wooded lot, and he was sitting on his deck drinking tea or coffee, some kind of hot beverage, and just enjoying when a mama bear comes around, delicately climbs over his small little wooden fence, meanders around his yard with him there. She knew he was there, found a tree, looked at it, walked back out of his yard, climbed delicately back over his fence, and he thought, oh, okay, she was just curious. All right, I'm okay. Continues to sit, and then she comes back with her baby. Delicately puts the baby inside the yard over the fence, climbs the fence delicately again, walks baby over to the tree she had inspected before, sends baby up the tree, looks at my neighbor, looks at her cub, looks at my neighbor, and you knew the look was, you're babysitting. Nothing better happened to my baby. And goes back out, delicately climbing over the fence again to go foraging for her and the baby. And the baby stood in the tree as my neighbor had to babysit the baby bear. Bear is an amazing animal.
Yeah. They're such great lumbering creatures. They look like they would be so clumsy, but they're so delicate in the way that they move. And that's another contradiction about them that I love.
Amazing creatures and great teachers.
They're incredible teachers. So when you're talking about associations in general, as we've seen so far, there's different ways to look at absolutely everything. You can go out as far outside of the box as you want to. You can pretend the box doesn't exist, and because we live in a universe that responds to our observations, it will disappear. For instance, mirrors are traditionally associated with water, but they also reflect both light and heat, making them appropriate to associate with fire. Or you can associate them with light and white magic, with black magic, with abyss and void. You can use them to summon, you can use them to banish. There's a lot of associations when it comes to mirrors that are contradictory with one another. And it's the same with fire. Fire is associated with both manifestation and vanishing, and you can do both at once. If you put something to burn into the fire, one you want to vanish, and whatever you want to fill that vacuum, you can do both things at once with the fire. So another area in which it can be extremely beneficial to think about associations, to think about connection, is with your pantheon. If you have deity in your practice and you want to form a deeper connection, is to think about the aspects and facets that resonate with you the most. And this can also help the way that you construct your pantheon.
A lot of the resources, they introduce pantheon and deity worship in a very hierarchical way. They are above, you are beseeching them.
Mhm.
And that works for quite a few people. But for me, my pantheon functions more like a round table discussion family unit. And there's a even equal exchange of energy.
Through developing some of these surprising relationships, these surprising associations with the deities, you've discovered a lot about yourself, and it's enabled personal growth.
Mm-hmm.
In my pantheon, the construction is a little different. My deities are all either mother or mentor type figures. I have 7 goddesses and 3 gods who have stepped into the circle of my perception. And when I started examining where they fit into my practice, I realized that the 7 goddesses were all there to associate with and steward the energies of my chakras. And they're all also, for me, mothers of general magical biomes, if you will. For instance, Hecate is the steward of my third eye chakra, and she's the mother of pathways, whereas Lilith is the steward of my sacral chakra, and she is the mother of the wilderness or the wild lands. So they're parallel in the energies that they steward for me and in the ways that they mother me. Hecate is very much associated with my third eye because of allowing in that wisdom, using that pineal gland space to light my way as I walk my path, because it's one of the things that Hecate does, is she's the torchbearer. And Lilith, obviously, that's an obvious association, but it works, right? Lilith is obviously associated with my sacral chakra because she's very associated with my sexuality, but also associated with my personal agency, which is the odd piece of that association, of taking that independence and running with it and not being frightened of the wilds or the wilderness or the brambles that I might find myself in. Well, Hecate is the one who has the light that is shining right in front of my feet. That's it. It's illuminated right in front of my feet, and that's all. Freya is a steward of my solar plexus chakra, where my personal power sits. She's a queen. First and foremost in her life, she's a queen. And queens do not forget that they are queens. They do not forget that they have power over themselves and over those who rely on them. So with that power, they also have to use it carefully. So she helps me balance the anxiety of putting myself out there with the ability to overshare and go too far and try to exert my will on others. That's not something that queens do. She helps me remain poised.
Mm-hmm.
But very, very often Freya is seen as a love goddess. So the obvious association would be in my heart chakra. But Artemis is there. She stewards my heart. She is a guardian of nature and the natural world and of young beings and of childbirth. She's also a warrior and a huntress, and she embodies the things that I attempt to balance and embody in myself. Another interesting one is Hades, or Death. He is one of the 3 male mentor gods that sit on my pantheon, and Hades is associated with stewarding my mind and my mental energy and scholarship and learning. Hades is not a fearful figure for me in any way. He's gentle and kind, intelligent and inquisitive, wants to understand the people in his realm and understand how to structure the underworld so that it's a place of rest for those who need it the most and a place of justice or of atonement and learning for those who need that the most. So those are just a few ways that I see my deities from a different perspective than they're usually viewed. Artemis being a huntress, but she is also extremely feminine, and she's very grounded in her own expressions of affection.
Mm-hmm.
Artemis, for me, she's a lesbian goddess. And there are some people who take issue with that because she's a virgin goddess, but we have to remember that virgin originally meant an unmarried woman or an independent woman. Second of all, if someone has Artemis on their pantheon or as their matron goddess and is asexual or aromantic, and that's how she resonates with you, that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
For me, she gives off big gay energy because I am a very gay person. And she sits in my heart because being gay primarily has to do with who you love.
Mm-hmm.
So this type of instinctual magic can be a lot of fun to explore too. And it can be very freeing.
So that's all we have on our topic for today. Thank you so much for listening in, and we hope you'll join us again soon. In the meantime, you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Pinterest for more witchy wisdom, both here and on our blog. And you can also check out our original art on Society 6 for sacred decor and more. Thanks again for joining us. Go make some magic and live your best life.